I can still feel the weight of the cement buckets on my arms even now decades later. That house, my house, wasn't just wood, drywall, and windows. It was bone and soul. My bone, my soul. It was my fingerprints in the plaster when the contractor left early. 'Twas the sweat soaked into every corner. The quiet prayers whispered while I nailed baseboards in the hallway with trembling fingers. It was love, stubborn, old-fashioned, back-breaking love that built it. And that's why when my eldest son said, "Mom, don't be difficult. Just sign the house over. It'll be easier for everyone," something inside me shifted, like a thread snapping inside fabric. You don't notice it at first, but eventually the whole damn thing unravels. Let me start from the beginning. The house stands on 3 acres just outside of town, on land my late husband Elias bought with every last rupee we had. Back then, there was nothing here but dust, thorns, and a small creek winding like a ribbon through the far end of the property. The locals laughed. "Why would you move out there?" They asked. No water lines, no paved roads, just potential and madness. But Elias saw something, and I trusted him the way only a fool in love would. I was 24 pregnant with our second son when we laid the first stone. There were no contractors then, just neighbors, uncles, and borrowed tools. We lived in a tin-roofed shack for over a year while we built the foundation of what would become our life. It took 5 years to finish the house. 5 years of scraped knees, busted backs, and a lot of tears I pretended were just from the dust. But every room had meaning. Every corner told a story. The front porch. That's where Elias would sit after his night shifts, sipping his tea in silence, watching the kids chase each other barefoot across the field. The kitchen. That's where I taught all 3 of my children how to cook. Not because they wanted to, but because I insisted that a full belly should always come from your own hands, not someone else's. I gave them everything. Education, hot meals, second chances, third chances. I forgave tantrums, broken windows, bad grades, missed birthdays. I stayed up when they came home drunk. I lied for them when they failed classes. I kept secrets even when those secrets broke me. That's what mothers do, right? And yet here I am, 69 years old, sitting at the same kitchen table where I once made parathas while the kids did homework, now being told I should give it all away. Hand it over like it was some old purse I didn't want anymore. It started subtly. Little remarks. Hints dropped like coins in a wishing well. "You shouldn't be lifting laundry baskets at your age, Mom. Why don't we get you a condo? Closer to the city, you'd be safer there. It's too much land to manage now. Let us take care of it." Let us take care of it. No one ever says what they really mean. But I wasn't born yesterday. What they meant was, we want the house. We want the land. We want the inheritance early. And the worst part? It didn't come from strangers. It came from my own children. Daniel, my eldest, is a corporate consultant. Hasn't broken a sweat in years unless his gym session counts. Always dressed like he's going to court, even when he's just coming to check on me. But there's something behind his smile lately. It used to be warmth. Now it's calculation. Then there's Lena, my only daughter, sweet as sugar. When she wants something. She was the one who started planting ideas in my head. Wouldn't it be nice to live in one of those senior villas, Mom? So peaceful, so clean. She even brought me brochures. Like she was selling me a cruise package. And finally, Rafi. My baby boy. Always the quiet one. He doesn't say much, but he listens to everything. Especially when Daniel talks about asset distribution and streamlining property logistics. Big words to make theft sound legal. I try not to judge them too harshly. Maybe the world made them this way, fast-paced, selfish. Always looking forward, never back. But I raised them better than this. I did. I know I did. Last week I found them whispering in the driveway. I stood by the window, heart pounding, listening through the cracked pane. She's not going to just hand it over. Lena was saying. We need to make it sound like it's for her own good. She cave, Daniel said. We'll come with a lawyer. Frame it like estate planning. Use emotional language. She'll sign. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just turned, went into the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea. 'Cause if there's one thing I've learned in all my years, it's this. When the world tries to shake you, pour yourself something warm and plant your feet deeper. They think I'm old, tired, weak. They think they can guilt me, manipulate me, maneuver around me like I'm just a check mark in their future plans. But they've forgotten something. I'm the woman who built this house with bare hands and blistered hope. I'm the woman who raised them through hunger, heartbreak, and hospital bills. I've survived betrayal before, but this time, I see it coming and I'm ready. Let them come, let them bring their lawyers, their fake smiles, their PowerPoint presentations, and passive-aggressive guilt. They think they're clever, but I already changed my will, and they're about to find out exactly who they underestimated. They came on a Sunday. Of course they did. Sunday was always family day. Back when Elias was alive, the smell of biryani would fill the house. And all three kids would argue over who got the drumsticks. Now they bring store-bought muffins, fake smiles, and hidden agendas. Daniel came first. Always punctual, always dressed like he's about to sign million-dollar contracts. His shoes didn't even get dusty as he stepped out of his shiny imported car and walked up the stone path. I laid myself. Lena arrived next, wearing sunglasses too big for her face and perfume too strong for my house. She hugged me tightly, too tightly like she was squeezing out guilt. Rafi came last. No wife, no kids, just silence. He kissed my forehead like he always did and sat at the table like he was bracing for war. And maybe he was. Mom? Daniel began, clearing his throat. We were talking the other day. Here it comes. And we thought maybe it's time you considered something easier. I raised my brow. Easier. Lena chimed in like she was doing damage control. You know, a smaller place. Less maintenance, no gardening, no stairs. You've done so much. This house is just too big now. Too big. This house once held 6 cousins, 2 aunties, a sick uncle, a cat, and a dying goat in the back shed, and still had room for more. But now it's suddenly too big for one woman. I sipped my tea. And who decided that? Daniel smiled. That polished, sterile smile that made my skin crawl. We're just concerned about you, Mom. If something were to happen like, what? I cut in. Me waking up in my own bed, making my own tea, and sitting in the same chair your father made for me 30 years ago. Rafi looked away. Daniel reached into his leather briefcase. Papers. Not just any papers, legal ones. Thick, freshly printed, with blue sticky tabs and a pen clipped neatly to the top. I spoke to a lawyer, he said casually. It's just a transfer document. Temporary, of course. It's just so we can help manage the property. Taxes, utilities. You know, things you shouldn't worry about anymore? I laughed. Actually laughed. It startled even me. You think I built this house so someone else could manage it for me? You think I lived through all this just to hand it over like a leftover roadie? Lena's face twitched. Mom, please. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Beta? I said, leaning forward. Explain it to me. Because all I see are 3 grown children who want to make their lives easier by getting rid of the woman who made theirs possible. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Rafi finally spoke. It's not about that. We worry. No, I said sharply. You calculate. There's a difference. I stood, slowly, deliberately. I may be older, but I've learned that power isn't in speed, it's in presence. You all think you know what's best for me, but let me tell you something. When your father died, not one of you came for a week. I buried the man who built this house with me alone. And now that you smell property value and inheritance, suddenly I'm fragile. I walked over to the window and pulled aside the curtain. Do you see that mango tree out there? I asked, pointing. No one answered. I planted that tree the day Daniel was born. I watered it every morning while your father worked night shifts. It didn't grow for 3 years. Everyone said it was useless. But I waited. I believed in it. And now, look, it feeds birds, bees, and strangers who don't even say thank you. I turned to face them. That tree is this house, and I am that tree. Daniel's smile was gone now. He was studying me like I was a client gone off script. Mom, he said carefully, you don't need to make this harder than it is. And you, I replied, don't get to decide what I need. I walked over to the counter, opened the top drawer, and pulled out my new will, the one I had rewritten 2 months ago in secret with a lawyer of my choosing. I placed it gently on the table before you came today. I already made my decision. This house will not go to you. Not to any of you. Not because I don't love you, but because love without respect is hollow. Lena's jaw dropped. Rafi looked like someone had smacked him. Daniel, he was already on his phone. Who are you? Texting? I asked, amused. He looked up, flustered. My assistant. I have a call. I smirked. Of course he did. Get out, I said quietly. They didn't move. I raised my voice. I said, get out. If you come back, come as my children, not as vultures. They left one by one. No hugs, no goodbyes. Just the sound of tires crunching gravel as they drove off, probably to regroup and re-strategize. But I had drawn the line now. Clear, firm, unshakable. I stood at the door and looked out at the field. The mango tree swayed gently in the breeze, almost like it was nodding. I smiled. Let them come again if they dare. I am ready. The word selfish came 3 days later, not to my face, of course. That would require courage. No, they said it through a group message. One of those awkward family-only chats that no one used until it was time to guilt-trip the old woman who raised them. It was Lena who sent it. Mom, we're just hurt. We've always been there for you. But if you want to throw us away over some paperwork, that's your choice. Just know how selfish it feels. I read it twice, then once more, just to really taste the word dot. Selfish. A mother who stitched their uniforms at night. Selfish. A woman who skipped her insulin to buy Daniel's first suit. Selfish. The one who sold her wedding jewelry when Lena wanted to study abroad. Selfish. The same woman who held Rafi's hand in court when he crashed his father's old car and nearly ruined the family name. Selfish. I laughed loud and long, with my hand on my belly and my eyes watering, not from sadness, but from sheer absurdity they always taught us in school. A mother's love is unconditional. What they didn't teach us is that children often place conditions on respect, and when you stop breaking your back for them, you're suddenly selfish. I wrote back, thank you for showing me who you really are. I'm not throwing anyone away. I'm simply putting down what I've carried alone for decades. If that offends you, perhaps it's time to ask why you were never strong enough to carry it with me. Send? I didn't wait for the replies. I silenced the group. Then I stood, wrapped my shawl around my shoulders, and walked outside. The wind was cool, dry, the kind of weather Elias used to call truthful air. No lies in it, no perfume to cover the rot. That evening, I cooked just for me. No leftovers, no portions held back for Lena's vegan nonsense. Oh, no spiceless curry for Daniel's sensitive stomach. No extra rice for Rafi, who never left clean dishes behind. Just a single plate. For me, and it tasted better than anything I'd eaten in years. The next morning, the real attack began. Daniel sent a letter from his lawyer. Polite, formal, poison, wrapped in silk. He was contesting my capacity, implying ever so gently that perhaps my decisions were being influenced, or worse, that I was no longer mentally fit to manage my own estate. I stared at the letter. So that's what they'd reduced me to. Not a mother, not a widow, not a matriarch, just a legal obstacle. They didn't want me out of love. They wanted me out of the way. That was the moment something inside me snapped, or perhaps reawakened. I wasn't going to survive this. No, I was going to win. I dialed the number I had saved months ago. Mr. Satter, the estate lawyer, he answered on the third ring, cheerful as ever. Madame, I was just about to call you. I'm ready, I said. Let's do everything. He paused. Everything. Yes, full irrevocable trust. The house, the land, the royalties from Ilias's designs. I want it locked airtight. And I want every clause written so carefully, not even a cockroach could crawl through. He whistled. That strong, huh? I looked at the photo of Elias on the wall. Yes, that's strong, he chuckled. Then you're going to love what we already started. By the end of the week, the documents were filed. My house was now protected not just from greedy children, but from any relative who suddenly remembered I was their favorite auntie. And the best part? I had a clause added. Any individual who initiates legal action against the grantor or attempts to contest this trust shall be immediately disqualified from all inheritance and financial access. Daniel would choke when he read that. Rafi might cry. Lena would probably call me sobbing at 2 a.m., claiming someone else put him up to it. I was ready for all of it. Let them come on Friday. I went to the salon. Yes, the salon. A little trim. A fresh oil massage and bright maroon polish on my nails. The girls there treated me like a queen. One even called me boss lady when I told her I was rewriting my will. I left with my hair wrapped in silk, my lips tinted, and my back straight. I wasn't the same woman who sat quietly at my husband's funeral. Ignored and dismissed. I was becoming someone I used to be before motherhood drained her, before silence became a survival tactic. I was becoming me again. That night. I got another message from Rafi Mom. They've gone too far. I didn't know Daniel was filing that. Please let me come talk alone. I stared at it for a long time. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But trust isn't given. It's earned. And in this war, I wasn't handing out any more weapons. There's a strange thing that happens when a mother stops waiting. The air in the house shifts. The floors creak differently. Even the curtains seem to flutter with a different rhythm, freer, louder. That morning, I woke up before the sun, like I always did. But this time, I didn't make breakfast for anyone but myself. No tea tray for Rafi. No porridge for Daniel's so-called gut health. It's definitely no almond milk nonsense for Lena. Just hot, bitter chai. One mug. No guilt. And then I made a call, one that would reclaim everything they thought they had taken. Start the renovations. I told the contractor today. He hesitated. Madam, we're still waiting on approvals for the extension. I don't want the extension. I want the removal. He paused. Removal of the side unit. The one Rafi was squatting in like a king. Silence, then, got it. We'll bring the crew. By 10 a.m. The drilling began, loud, obnoxious, beautiful. It was the sound of erasure, of cleansing brick by brick. The room Rafi had claimed for himself was being dismantled. It wasn't legally his. It never was. He just stayed because he thought I wouldn't say no. Like I hadn't said no to anything in 30 years. He showed up around noon. I saw him through the security camera before he rang the bell, disheveled, confused, furious. I didn't open the door. Instead, I pressed the intercom. You're trespassing, I said calmly. He blinked into the camera. Mom, what the hell? That was my room. No, I corrected. It was my room. You were a guest. One who overstayed his welcome by 4 years. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. You're really doing this? Looked at the screen. At the boy I had once rocked to sleep. Okay. Now a man who barely remembered my birthday unless there was an envelope involved. Yes, Rafi, I said. I'm really doing this. The texts came in waves after that. Lena, Mom, please stop this madness. You're tearing the family apart. Daniel, I hope the new people in your life are worth it. 'Cause you've lost your real family. And then the most pathetic of all, a voice note from my sister. La, Baji. We know grief makes people act out. But surely you don't mean to push away your own children. After all, you gave them. Don't you think you owe them the benefit of the doubt? Oh, that word again. Like I was some eternal debtor. Paying off a loan I never took. What they didn't realize was I wasn't grieving anymore. I was rebuilding. I hired a gardener next, not because I needed one, but because Elias always wanted roses along the fence, and I'd never had the time to busy raising ungrateful heirs. Now I had time and money. It's three things they never wanted me to have. I walked the house like a queen, moved furniture, cleared out rooms, took down Lena's childhood art, not to discard, but to archive, because I was done displaying loyalty that was no longer returned. I even had the locks changed. All of them. The key was mine alone. A week later, the court dismissed Daniel's claim. His face, I was told, turned pale when the judge read out the clause barring any beneficiary from contesting. Legally binding. Intentionally constructed. She knew exactly what she was doing. Those were the judge's words. I did a small dance in my living room. A little off balance, a little ridiculous, but joyful. For the first time in decades. I wasn't surviving in my own house. I was living in it that night. I took out the wedding album. Elias stared back at me, young and handsome, with that half smile he always wore when he was scheming something romantic. "You'd be proud of me," I whispered. And I meant it, because for years I was the shadow behind the man. The cook, the planner, the mother, the fixer. But now I was the woman who rewrote her fate. Not because she had to, but because she finally wanted to. When families call a meeting and exclude the matriarch. You know, something foul is brewing. I found out from my cousin Farah, who still had a shred of loyalty. She texted me late at night. They're meeting at Lena's on Saturday. You weren't invited, but it's about you. I stared at the message like it was written in fire. My children, my late husband's siblings, my own niece, sitting in a room plotting how to make me hand over what Elias gave to me. I sipped my tea, let it burn my tongue, and whispered to myself, let them meet. I'll be there. Saturday arrived like a storm. Lena's house was in a gated enclave, fancy, sterile, and painfully cold. I showed up 10 minutes late, wearing my green silk kurta, the one Elias bought me for our anniversary the year before he died. Emerald earrings, sandals that clicked with every step. No makeup, just intention. The guard didn't want to let me in, but I handed him the deed to Elias's land. Lena's husband was illegally developing. I own the soil your feet stand on. I told him, let me pass. He did, with his eyes downcast. The moment I entered, conversation died mid-sentence. Lena was holding court at the head of the table. Daniel and Rafi were on either side. My sister-in-law, of course, wore the expression of a wronged saint. There's cousins, nephews, distant. Aunts just shifted uncomfortably. They hadn't expected me, but I was done being expected. I was arriving. I pulled out a chair, sat at the table, and placed my bag on the wood like it was a gavel. Don't stop on my account, I said. I'm very curious what you're deciding about my life. Lena tried first. Mom, this isn't a confrontation. It's a discussion about... Daniel cleared his throat. About how we can move forward as a family. Things have become inconvenient, I finished, for you. Silence. Rafi leaned forward. You're making this harder than it has to be. I looked at him slowly. This is me making it easy. You're sitting in a house you couldn't afford without your sister's wedding loan. And you're trying to claw land from the woman who paid for your education. He flushed red. Look down. I turned to Lena. You're angry because I sold the plot you wanted for your husband's office, aren't you? She tried to stay calm. I just don't understand why everything has to be so cold. So legal. Oh, so now you prefer emotion over law? I smiled. Where was that empathy when you and your uncles tried to block Elias's final will? Lips thinned. My sister-in-law clutched her pearls. Literally. I begged you, Badgie. I begged you to think of the grandchildren. You had no right to remove their inheritance? I turned to her slowly. You mean the inheritance I built? With my cooking, my stitching, my unpaid labor? The inheritance, Elias said, was mine after. He saw how little you all cared when he fell ill. Gasps, stares, shame flickered across some faces, though not all. I continued, you all forgot something. I was quiet, not weak. I was loyal, not blind. I stood. This meeting is over. Next time you want to make decisions about my home, try doing it with me, or not at all. I walked out, leaving the silence heavier than when I had entered. Outside, the sky was turning pink. The sun dipped low, and for the first time in a long time, I felt taller than the trees. Later that night, Rafi messaged me. I don't know who you are anymore. I replied simply, I'm the woman who raised. You just never looked closely. Great. Here's the next chapter of your cinematic, first-person revenge story. The notice came folded, taped to my front gate. It wasn't even hand-delivered, just carelessly slapped like some neighborhood pamphlet. It read, You are hereby required to vacate the premises within 30 days. Signed by my own son Daniel with the family's lawyer's name stamped below it. No call, no warning, no dignity. They had decided, once again, that I was inconvenient. My hands trembled only for a moment. Then I folded the paper neatly, walked inside, and placed it next to the framed photo of Elias on the mantel. You always said they'd come for blood, I whispered. But they forgot whose veins they came from. Let me tell you something about grief. It sharpens memory. When Elias was sick, it made me sit with him every evening as he revised his papers. Notarize this, he'd say. Add a writer there. And in one of those long evenings, I remember something he added almost casually in the event of my death. The residence located at 17 Goldberg Lane shall remain the sole property of my wife, Shazia Qureshi, and cannot be contested, transferred, or sold without her explicit written consent. A clause, a single sentence, but a sword in the right hands. The next morning, I dressed in all white, not mourning-white, power-white, the kind of white that blinds people into silence. I walked into the lawyer's office, the one my son had, used to file the notice, and dropped the original deed on his desk. Before you humiliate yourself in court, I said you should read page 7. Clause 32. He blinked, flipped, redot, and paled. Daniel called me that night. Why are you doing this, Amy? He asked. I'm your son. I kept my voice even. And I was your mother. It's the one you betrayed for a house. Do you want me on the street? Now that Abba is gone, it's not like that. Oh, but it is. I paused, letting the words weigh. You're not evicting a stranger. You're trying to erase the woman who kept this roof over your head when you were a colicky. Baby and Elias worked double shifts. He was quiet. Then he hung up. 3 days later, the notice was withdrawn. No apology, just silence. The kind that makes cowards sweat and women like me smile. I made tea that evening, sat by the window, and watched the rain. The house creaked, like it was breathing again, like it knew it was finally safe. I whispered softly, You built this for me. Elias and I protected it, like I protected everything, quietly, fiercely, completely. I noticed it one random afternoon, no notifications, no forwarded memes. No complaints from my daughter-in-law about the house help. Just nothing. Out. Of habit, I opened WhatsApp, scrolled to Family Legacy, and it was gone. Vanished, like I never existed. I wasn't surprised, just hollow. These were people I carried in my womb, cradled in my arms, fed before I fed myself. And now I wasn't even good enough for a group chat. No explanation, no message, just deleted. I made tea, not to calm myself, but to center myself. Because when they try to make you feel invisible, the best revenge is being undeniable. And I had just the thing, weeks ago. After Elias's will was read, I'd quietly sold a barren plot of land he left me in Sheikhupura. The boys thought it was worthless. Too far, they said. No value. If I took that money and met with a developer, a quiet man, sharp man, one who saw the sparkle in the old bones of abandoned places. We struck a deal. I funded the initial build of 6 rental homes on that land, brick by brick, floor by floor, by the time the family removed me from WhatsApp. I had full ownership and rental agreements signed. So I took a photo, the property deeds, the title with my name on it. 6 sets of keys, all lined up like medals. I sent that picture directly to my granddaughter Amina. She still talked to me, quietly, lovingly, Beta. I wrote, please forward this to the group that forgot I exist. I added, ownership looks good in green ink, doesn't it? I didn't expect a reply, but I got one, from my niece Layla, the loudest one. The one who always said I was too quiet to be dangerous. Mashallah, auntie. May Allah give baraka. Now they wanted to bless what they couldn't break. I smiled the next week. I hosted a chai evening on the Sheikhupura property. I invited the tenants, their children, the builders, the developers, and a local journalist. We served gulab, jamun, pakoras, and pride. The article hit print too. Days later, widow turns inheritance into housing project for struggling families. Guess who tried to re-add me to the WhatsApp group? Daniel. Guess what I did? Declined. I may have lost my place in their filtered, curated version of family. But I gained something much louder. Presence. Because they can delete your name. From a group, that they can't delete it from deeds. From headlines. From history. I arrived early. The government function was for women in leadership. Held at the town hall, marble floors, red velvet ropes, and men who still refused to meet a woman's eye unless her last name matched a minister's. My name tag, red, says Shazia Qureshi, founder Qureshi Housing for Women. I didn't ask for front row seating. But when the ushers saw my name, it guided me right there, second chair from the podium. And that's when I heard it from behind a whisper. A chuckle. Why is she sitting there? Isn't that Daniel's mother? I thought she was just, a nurse. Nurse. That word again, the way they always said it, like it was less than they didn't know that it was those 12-hour hospital shifts that put food in Daniel's mouth, paid for his English tuition, and kept Elias's dignity intact even when his factory collapsed. But fine, let them laugh. The program hadn't even started yet. When the event began, the crowd hushed. The minister entered, tall, sharp-suited, eyes like searchlights. Everyone clapped, and then he began announcing the honorees. Doctors, lawyers, activists. And then he paused. Our next guest needs no introduction, he said. But I'll give her one anyway because we rarely honor the quiet architects of resilience. I felt the oxygen vanish from the room. This is a woman who turned grief into legacy, who was never on TV, never in politics, but still managed to build safe housing for women and children in Sheikhupura. With her own money, her own hands, and her husband's memory etched into every wall. People started murmuring, please welcome to the stage Mrs. Shazia Qureshi. My chair scraped softly as I stood. I didn't look back. Not at the family friends now choking on their compliments, not at the ex-in-laws. Who thought I'd faded after Elias? I only walked forward step by step, and when the minister handed me the crystal plaque and shook my hand, he leaned in and whispered, my wife grew up in one of your units. She told me to make sure you were honored today. That's when I smiled. Not for the cameras, not for applause, but for my past self, the one who once pawned her own gold bangles to keep the lights on. Later, during tea, a reporter asked for a quote. I looked directly into her lens and said, they say silence is weakness, but silence is just strategy. You don't always have to shout to be heard. Sometimes all you need to do is build something they can't ignore. That night, the family group chat, the one I had never rejoined, posted the article. Daniel commented, proud to be your son. I didn't respond, because he wasn't just my son anymore. He was now one of many watching from behind while I stood center stage. They never said it directly, but it echoed in every half smile, every polite dismissal. "Auntie, this is a young person's game. You should rest now. Let the boys handle it. You've done enough. Enough." I had spent my youth sewing clothes at midnight so my sons could wear store-bought ones. I had held Ilias's hand through debt, disgrace, and death. And now that I had money, property, and respect, I was suddenly too old to matter. Got the offer on a Tuesday. A community bank, small but growing, invited me to join their advisory board. They'd read about my housing project. They liked my philosophy: quiet work, loud results. I was hesitant at first, then I saw the board. Roster: 5 men, 0 women, all under 50. And I knew what I had to do. At the first meeting, I wore white, crisp, starched cotton. Not expensive, but powerful. The other board members stared like they'd seen a ghost. One actually asked, "So, you're here to observe?" Smiled gently. "No, Beta, I'm here to lead." Didn't take long. 3 meetings in, I'd proposed a plan: microloans for widows and single mothers. They pushed back. Risky, too emotional. Women don't have collateral. I stayed calm. Then I pulled out printed ledgers from my housing project. Default rate: 0. Late payments. Under 3%. Reinvestment. 75% of women reinvested profits into education and shelter. Silence. I looked around the table and said, "Don't call women risky. Call them what they are: the safest investment you'll ever make." They voted. Unanimous approval, and 2 months later I was named chairwoman of the board. Not honorary, not symbolic, official, legal, binding. The title spread like wildfire in the local papers, but it wasn't until the national channel covered it. It's with my photo under the headline, "At 71, Widow Becomes Financial Powerhouse for Women." That? The family's tone changed. Suddenly, I was getting invitations. "Amy, please come to Billow's graduation." "Tai, we're doing a family brunch Sunday. You must come." "Nini, Amina wants you to meet her fiancé's family." I went silent for a week. Then I sent a single message to Daniel. "Funny how fast they remember you when your name makes headlines." He replied, "You're right. I was wrong. We were all wrong." I didn't type anything back. Some apologies don't need words. They need time. But I wasn't bitter. I was blooming at 71. I had finally stopped asking for space now. I took it. There was a time I believed in disappearing gracefully, letting others take the spotlight, shrinking to make space. But death, Ilias's death, taught me something fierce. The world will not remember the quiet widow unless she gives them a reason to so know. I didn't fade, I flourished. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new Qureshi Women's Education Center was scheduled for Friday. A 4-story building, classrooms, a library, dorms for women escaping abusive homes. Tech Lab. It stood on the same land Elias once tried to buy but was laughed off by politicians. Now it was mine, in my name, paid in full. And I was the one cutting the ribbon. The event was packed. Reporters, ministers, foreign aid workers, young women in bright shawls, smiling and holding up handmade signs that read, "Thank you, Madam Shazia. You gave us a future." Even Daniel came. He stood in the back, quiet, hands folded in front of him. I hadn't seen him in person since the funeral. He looked older, not in years, but in humility. After my speech, he approached me alone. Double quotes AMMI, he said softly. "I know I can't undo what I said, what we did, but I'm proud of you." I looked him in the eyes. "You don't have to be proud of me, Beta," I said. "You just have to never doubt another woman again." He nodded. That was enough. A journalist from Islamabad asked if I was planning to retire now. "Retire," I laughed. "I have 60 women on waiting lists for microloans, 10 girls applying for scholarships, and 3 abandoned buildings were turning into shelters." I leaned closer and added, "Retirement is for people who've stopped dreaming. I'm just getting started." That night, I stood on the rooftop of the new center. Below me, girls laughed. A few danced in the courtyard, playing music from their phones. For the first time in decades, I felt light, not because the past was gone, but because I'd transformed it. Every insult, every door slammed in my face, every time they called me just the nurse. I turned it into brick, steel, purpose. They thought I would die quietly, but they forgot one thing. You can't silence a woman who finally found her voice. And now, the world would hear me whether they were ready or not.